There is one skill that terrifies other men, not because it's violent, not because it's loud, but because it's silent, invisible, ruthless. It's the kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself. It simply bends reality around it. Machiavelli understood it. Sun Tzu lived by it. And the truth is, the men who master this skill never have to chase anything again. Not power, not money, not respect, not women. Everything moves toward them like gravity. Before we go deeper, pause for a second. If you want to become one of those rare men who move in silence and dominate without noise, hit subscribe right now and comment "Silent Power." It tells me you're not here for entertainment, you're here for transformation. Now let's talk about the skill that separates masters from the masses: emotional control. The ability to control yourself under pressure, to stay calm when the world burns, to act with precision when everyone else reacts with panic. Most men crumble under tension. They let anger, pride, jealousy, or fear hijack their decisions, and that's why they stay weak, because they are predictable. A man who can be provoked is a man who can be controlled. And that's exactly what Machiavelli meant when he said, "The one who controls others is powerful. The one who controls himself is mighty." Sun Tzu echoed the same truth centuries earlier. He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not will be victorious. Emotional control isn't about being numb. It's about turning every emotion into a weapon. Discipline from anger, patience from fear, focus from pain. Imagine a battlefield. One soldier is screaming, panicking, firing in every direction. The other stands still, breathing, watching, waiting. Who do you think wins? The man who can observe without being pulled into the chaos. That's what terrifies others. Not aggression, not noise, but composure. The man who cannot be emotionally moved cannot be manipulated. Now think about your life. Every time someone tried to humiliate you, every time a woman tested you, every time a friend betrayed you, they were studying your reaction. The moment you reacted, you lost control. You handed them the remote to your emotions. But when you stayed calm, when you didn't give them the drama they expected, that's when they felt something deeper, fear, because they couldn't reach you. Machiavelli knew that in politics, in war, and in life, the man who remains unreadable always wins. Sun Tzu called it the art of deception, not lying, but never showing your hand, never letting anyone know what you feel or plan. The greatest weapon isn't the sword, it's unpredictability. When people can't predict you, they can't prepare for you. That's why emotional control is terrifying. It makes you untouchable. But emotional control doesn't just mean silence. It means transforming chaos into energy. The Stoics called it transmutation, using pain to fuel your growth. When a weak man feels pain, he collapses. When a strong man feels pain, he refines himself. Picture this. Two men lose everything. One drinks, complains, blames the world. The other disappears for 6 months, returns with new skills, new discipline, new power. That second man has mastered the skill. He's learned to stay still while the world screams. That's what Sun Tzu meant when he said, "In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity." Every emotional storm hides a door. Most men never find it because they drown in their feelings. But the man who can walk through the fire, eyes open, calm heart, clear mind, that man becomes unstoppable. Let's make this practical. Emotional control starts with awareness. When you feel anger, don't act, observe it. When you feel fear, don't run, study it. When you feel envy, don't hide it, transform it. Because every emotion is a message, not an enemy. Machiavelli said the prince must know human nature better than humans know themselves. That includes his own nature. He wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Most men interpret this as cruelty, but they miss the point. He meant that power requires boundaries, not approval. A man who seeks to be loved becomes dependent on others' opinions. A man who seeks to be respected becomes immune to them. And that's where emotional control turns into dominance. When you stop needing validation, people start giving it. When you stop reacting, people start chasing your reaction. When you stop talking, people lean in to listen. It's paradoxical. The less you do, the more powerful you become. Sun Tzu wrote, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." He knew the essence of manipulation lies in restraint. The wise man never reveals his strength until the moment it's useful. He hides behind stillness, behind humility, behind silence. Think about the men who inspire true respect. They don't argue, they don't explain, they don't prove, they simply act. Their presence speaks louder than their words. Their energy says, "I could destroy you, but I choose not to." That's what terrifies others. Not violence, but control of violence. Emotional control is the foundation of strategy. You can't plan if you're ruled by impulse. You can't build power if your mood dictates your moves. That's why the great ones, Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, Marcus Aurelius, all preach the same message. Master yourself first. Sun Tzu taught his generals to study the enemy's emotions. A commander who understood when his opponent was angry could lead him into traps. Likewise, Machiavelli advised princes to provoke emotions in others while never revealing their own. This duality, calm inside, chaos outside, is the secret of domination. When you show anger, others adjust. When you show fear, they attack. When you show desire, they manipulate. But when you show nothing, they project everything. They start guessing, they start fearing. Their uncertainty becomes your weapon, because power is psychological before it's physical. Whoever controls perception controls reality. You don't need to be the strongest, the richest, or the loudest. You only need to master the one thing others can't, your own mind. That's why emotional control terrifies other men. It exposes them. It reminds them of what they don't have. Discipline. It makes their insecurities scream louder in silence. Every room you enter, your energy speaks first. If your emotions are calm, grounded, unbothered, people feel it. If you're reactive, desperate, or scattered, they sense that too. Control isn't just mental, it's energetic. Machiavelli understood this. He knew that power radiates from those who can hold tension without breaking. That's why kings walk slowly. That's why warriors speak little. That's why truly powerful men never rush. They move on their own time, in their own rhythm. The world respects the man who respects himself enough not to react. And that's the real art. To be unshakable in a shaking world. To stay calm when others panic. To stay focused when others are distracted. To stay cold when others are emotional. That's what makes you rare. That's what makes you dangerous. Because in the game of life, the calmest man always wins. The men who rule the world don't scream, they observe. They don't fight for attention, they control it. And that's the second layer of this terrifying skill. Not just controlling your emotions, but controlling the emotions of others. Machiavelli and Sun Tzu both understood this perfectly. If emotional control is your shield, then emotional influence is your sword. Once you master your own reactions, you become capable of manipulating the reactions of everyone around you. That's the part that makes weaker men nervous, because you suddenly stop being a piece on the board and become the one moving the pieces. Sun Tzu said, "To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill." Think about that. The highest level of power isn't destroying others. It's making them destroy themselves while believing it was their idea. That's psychological warfare. When you can stay calm while others lose control, they start orbiting around your energy. They need your approval to feel stable again. They begin to mirror you. You become the emotional reference point, the standard. That's why women test men. They don't want to break them. They want to know if he's solid. Because only stability can lead. Only calmness can protect. So when she ignores you, when someone insults you, when someone betrays you, it's not a threat, it's an invitation. The universe is testing if you're still reactive, or if you finally learn to rule your own kingdom, your mind. Machiavelli wrote, "Men should be either treated generously or destroyed, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, but not of severe ones." The lesson is clear. When you act with control and finality. Don't waste emotion on half measures. A calm, calculated strike creates permanent respect. Emotional control is not passivity. It's power under tension. It's the art of knowing when to wait, when to act, and when to disappear. Imagine being in a negotiation. The other person is nervous, talking fast, desperate to close. You, on the other hand, stay quiet. You let silence fill the space. They start explaining more, revealing more, offering more. They fear your calmness. They mistake your stillness for superiority. And that's the point. In a world addicted to noise, silence is dominance. The same rule applies to confrontation. Never argue when angry. Never explain when attacked. Your silence is the most deafening response. It drives people insane because it gives them no control. They want to pull your strings and realize the strings have been cut. Machiavelli advised rulers to appear merciful, faithful, humane, honest, and religious, but to be ready to act against all of them if needed. Why? Because emotion is a mask, not a master. You must control it to use it. If others control it, you're enslaved by perception. Sun Tzu taught the same through strategy. If your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. This means that if you can make someone emotional, you own their decision-making process. When you stay calm, no one can own yours. Look at modern life. People live on emotional autopilot. Every scroll, every notification, every argument, every headline, it's designed to trigger you. The system doesn't need to chain you, it just needs to keep you reactive. Because a reactive man is predictable, and a predictable man can be controlled. The new battlefield is not made of swords or guns, it's made of attention. The man who can hold his focus when everyone else is distracted already holds an empire inside his mind. That's why meditation, solitude, and silence terrify others. They reveal how chaotic most people truly are inside. A man who is comfortable alone is uncontrollable. You can't bribe him with noise, pleasure, or approval. His calmness is a weapon. Sun Tzu's greatest strategy wasn't to attack directly, but to manipulate perception. He made his enemies see weakness where there was strength, peace where there was danger. Machiavelli used the same trick in politics. He let rivals believe they were winning while he controlled the outcome from the shadows. That's emotional chess, and most people are still playing checkers. Let's apply this to relationships. When a woman tries to trigger you, silence is power. When she pulls away, patience is power. When she tests your emotions, calmness is attraction. The man who doesn't chase, who doesn't argue, who doesn't explain, becomes a mystery, and the mind craves what it can't understand. Powerful men understand that silence creates imagination. When you disappear, they start thinking about you. When you stay calm, they start doubting themselves. When you act emotionless, they start chasing your validation. It's reverse psychology at its purest. Machiavelli would say, it is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver. When you understand how emotions move others, you can make them believe your calmness means disinterest, while you observe, collect information, and strike at the perfect moment. That's not cruelty, that's efficiency. You see, emotions are like fire. If you let them consume you, you burn. If you learn to control them, you forge steel. Every setback you've ever faced, betrayal, loss, humiliation, was a forge. But instead of letting it refine you, you probably tried to escape it. That's why most men stay soft. They run from discomfort, not realizing it's the very pressure that builds the calm they envy in others. Sun Tzu said, "He who knows when he can fight and when he cannot will be victorious." Emotional control gives you that awareness. You know when to engage and when to stay still. You know when to speak and when to let silence do the talking. You know when to lose a battle to win the war. Because the truth is, you don't need to fight every time you're provoked. The strongest warrior isn't the one who wins the most fights, it's the one who chooses the right ones. That's wisdom. That's the level Machiavelli and Sun Tzu operated on. They saw emotion not as weakness, but as data. Every reaction reveals a weakness. Every outburst reveals a fear. So they studied human behavior like surgeons, cutting into the soul of mankind. And what they discovered is terrifying. The masses want comfort, not control. They want peace, but they fear silence. They want success, but they flee from discipline. You can't be like them. You must train yourself to find peace in discomfort, focus in chaos, stillness in storms. When something triggers you, breathe. When someone disrespects you, smile. When the world falls apart, remain centered. Because everyone around you is losing their mind, and that's your advantage. There's a point where emotional control transforms into spiritual dominance. You start feeling detached from the madness of the world. You move differently. You think before you act. You no longer chase anything. Not validation, not revenge, not acceptance. You become like water, adaptable, silent, yet impossible to crush. That's when people start whispering about you. He's different. He doesn't react. He's cold. What they really mean is, they can't manipulate you anymore. And that's why they fear you. In the end, this is the real Machiavellian art. To remain calm in the face of storms you secretly control. To smile when others are angry. To stay patient while others rush. To use silence as strategy. That's how you dominate without noise.